The year is 2006. City builders were everywhere, but if you wanted a game that made you feel like a Roman governor, Caesar 4 was one to play. It was ambitious and beautiful for its time, and gave players the power to shape the empire as they wished. But was it truly a worthy successor to the legendary Caesar 3, or just another forgotten entry in city building genre? Today, we'll take a deep dive into Caesar 4, its history, its gameplay, its story, and how it was received back then compared to now. Caesar 4 was developed by Tilted Mill Entertainment, a studio founded by veterans of Impressions games, the very same team behind classics like Caesar 3, Pharaoh, and Zeus, Master of Olympus, and the game was published by Sierra Entertainment and released on September 26, 2006, exclusively for PC only. Let's dive quickly a bit into the history of other games in the franchise, starting with Caesar 1. The journey began in 1992, when Impressions Games released the original Caesar. It was fairly bare bones compared to what would come later, but it introduced the idea of running a Roman city by balancing infrastructure, trading, and fulfilling the empire's demands. Kaiser 2 followed in 1995, expanding into province-wide management and larger, more ambitious maps. But it was Kaiser 3 in 1998 that became a landmark title. Its isometric visuals, walker-based citizen system, and finely tuned balance of difficulty made it not just a hit with fans, but a defining game for the genre. Even today, Kaiser 3 is often remembered as the pinnacle of Roman city builders. But the industry was changing. By the early 2000s, Impressions Games was gone, and the stick was passed to a new studio, Tilted Mill Entertainment, formed in 2002 by former Impressions developers including Chris Beatrice. This was the team behind Pharaoh and Zeus, Master of Olympus, two beloved city builders set in ancient Egypt and Greece. Their experience made them the natural choice to revive Kaiser for the modern era gaming. In 2004, Tilted Mill released Children of the Nile, a spiritual successor to Pharaoh. It introduced a 3D engine and a new approach to the citizen simulation, where individuals had daily routines rather than simply serving as abstract walkers. The game was ambitious, but had mixed receptions, with some praising the depth while others struggled with the new mechanics. When development began on Kaiser 4, Tilted Mill built on that foundation. The goal was to bring the Roman Empire to life in full 3D, combining the immersive details of Children of the Nile with the proven popularity of Kaiser 3. Players would get rotating camera views, zoomed-in citizens with visible jobs and routines, and a more realistic class system reflecting Roman society, where citizens were divided into plebeians, laborers, equites, skilled workers, and patricians, elite citizens. Kaiser 4 launched on September 26, 2006, published by Sierra Entertainment as we mentioned. Their marketing emphasized the jump to 3D, the depth of the economic systems, and the authenticity of Roman life. At the time, city builders were competing for attention. For example, SimCity 4, that we covered, was still hugely popular. SimCity Rome launched the same year as Kaiser 4, and Anno 1701 would arrive just weeks later. For fans of the ancient Sims, 2006 was a feast, but it also meant Kaiser 4 had to fight hard to stand out. By the time that Kaiser 4 arrived, the Kaiser series had already cemented itself as one of the greatest in the city building genre. Like its predecessors, the goal of Kaiser 4 is simple: build a Roman city from the ground up, keep your citizens happy, and prove yourself worthy of the Emperor's trust. But this time, everything was rebuilt in a 3D engine, which fundamentally changed how the game felt. But as any player quickly found out, simple didn't mean easy. The game features three main campaigns, spanning different periods of Roman history: Kingdom, the Republic, and the Empire. Each campaign had missions with specific goals. from turning a small frontier outpost into a thriving settlement to running trade hubs to fending off barbarian raids. Now let's focus on specific gameplay features, starting with city building. As governor, you start with an empty patch of land and a few resources. Roads are the backbone of your city, and just like in any earlier Kaiser games, placement is everything. Buildings connected to those roads and citizens physically walked along them to do their jobs. Players laid down roads, housing, markets, and infrastructure like aqueducts, baths, and temples. The key was satisfying your citizens' needs. Poorer classes required basic like food and jobs, while wealthier patricians demanded luxury goods, lavish entertainment, and pristine villas, or else they would protest and leave your towns. Citizens are divided into three classes as we mentioned: the plebeians, the working poor people, equites, middle-class merchants and artisans, and patricians, the wealthy elite. Managing those layers meant you couldn't just throw down huts and hope for the best. You had to design cities that balanced every tier of Roman society. Economy and trade. One of the biggest changes in Kaiser 4 was its global trade network. Your city was part of a larger provincial economy, and you needed to produce surplus goods to export while importing essentials you couldn't make locally. Markets distributed food and items to household, but supply chains could easily break down. If your farms underproduced grain, the poor would riot. If luxury imports stalled, patricians abandoned their villas. Every link in the chain mattered. Taxes were your main revenue stream, but exports could make or break your treasury. Unlike earlier games where money felt secondary, in Kaiser 4, financial planning was front and center. Then we have military. Unlike Kaiser 3, where military missions could dominate, in Kaiser 4 the army played a supporting role. You could recruit legions, build forts, and defend your cities from raids, but large-scale battles weren't the focus of the franchise. Still, neglecting your defenses invited disaster to your doormat, barbarian invasions that could undo hours of careful planning in a matter of minutes. Then we have religion and entertainment. Building temples to Roman gods like Jupiter and Mars wasn't optional. Roman gods demanded attention, and ignoring them had consequences, sometimes fatal for your town. Entertainment too was critical. Amphitheaters, arenas, and colosseums kept morale high and people productive. Ignore those, and unrest spread like wildfire. You know the good old saying, give them bread and circuses and they will never revolt. And last part, 3D graphics and immersion. The full 3D engine allowed you to zoom in on bustling markets, follow citizens along the streets, and admire aqueducts stretching across the valleys. This alone made cities feel alive, but it also introduced complexity. Pathfinding issues often plagued players, with workers taking bizarre routes or markets failing to reach houses even when goods were available. For some, the realism was immersive, for others, it was just a frustrating micromanagement. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The interface could be clunky and citizens often behaved in confusing ways. Managing different social classes, plebs, equites, and patricians added realism, but also frustration, as one missing resource could tank your city happiness. While Kaiser 4 didn't have a traditional story in the sense of a protagonist, it did structure its campaigns around the rise of Rome itself. In the Kingdom campaign, you begin humbly, a provincial governor tasked with carving order out of the wilderness. As you progress, you're entrusted with larger and more prestigious provinces, building not just cities but the backbone of an empire, a Roman Empire. By the Republic campaign, your tasks grow more ambitious. You manage trade hubs, build monumental projects, and defend Rome's borders. Each mission feels like a chapter in Rome's expansion across the Mediterranean. Finally, the Empire campaign puts you in the charge of Rome at its peak. The challenges here are less about survival and more about prestige, creating glorious cities that reflect the might and culture of the Empire. In the essence, the plot of Kaiser 4 isn't about individual characters, but about your role as governor rising through the ranks of Roman society, guiding the empire from small settlements to the grand cities history remembers. When Kaiser 4 released, reviews were mixed to positive. Critics praised its ambition, its gorgeous 3D visuals, and the scale of its city building. Seeing a Roman city bustling with life, citizens shopping, farmers tending fields, priests performing rituals, well, that was a huge leap forward from Kaiser 3. But not everyone was impressed. Many longtime fans felt that the game traded depth for spectacle, a trend in those times that we can spot as with other games we reviewed in past. The shift to 3D came with performance issues and the AI often felt unpolished, but finding bugs and micromanagement frustrations dragged the experience down also. Sites like IGN gave it a 7.4 out of 10, calling it solid but flawed. GameSpot landed at 7.6 out of 10, praising its atmosphere but criticizing its pacing and difficulty spikes. Overall, it was seen as good but not the classic its predecessor has been. Players, however, were split. Some loved the immersion and the sense of running a living city. Others abandoned it for older favorites like Kaiser 3 or competitors like SimCity Rome. Over time, it became more of a niche title, remembered fondly by some but overlooked in the broader city builder canon. So, where does the Kaiser 4 stand today? It was an ambitious game, no doubt, a leap into 3D that gave us the most visually immersive version of Rome up to that point. But ambition can be a double-edged sword. In trying to modernize, it lost some of the elegance and balance that made Kaiser 3 timeless. Still, for those who played it, Kaiser 4 holds a special charm. It captured the grand picture of Rome, the complexity of balancing trade and classes, and the thrill of seeing your city rise from small outpost to imperial town where everything was possible. It may not have the legendary status of its predecessor, but it remains an important chapter in city building history, a game that dared to bring Rome to life in a new era, even if it stumbled along the way. With that said, it's time to end the video. Thank you guys for watching and see you in the next video.
Currently, there are no known enemy threats to the city.
All and good sure works up an appetite. Just wish there was enough food to satisfy it.
attention must be paid to our city's prosperity.
Currently, there are no known enemy.
More attention must be paid to our city's prosperity.